Once upon a time, there was a beautiful island named Rapa Nui in the local language, famous today for its enormous standing stone heads. Archaeologists have revealed that the island, 45 square miles, was once covered with a subtropical forest with trees 80 feet high. Porpoise and other fish, chickens, sea and land birds were cooked in the ovens fired with the wood of the forest. The Polynesian colonists prospered and multiplied up to supposedly 15,000. But they started to cut the trees faster than they grew, and deforestation impoverished the soil by erosion. What the Dutch explorer Jacob Roggegen saw when he discovered the island, Easter Day 1772, was a barren land where native animals were not bigger than insects. Living in caves, the last 200 or 300 inhabitants, unable to leave the island by lack of material to build boats, were resorting to cannibalism to survive. Island Earth suffers today in the middle of the galactic ocean from a virus called the Rapa Nui syndrome. At its creation, and for a moment on its history, America has been great. But since it's deviated to become, with no measure, the showcase of the biggest and the most, the envy of the world. You know that it is said that if you spit in the air, it comes back on your nose. You also know what is the meaning of the word envy. According to the Webster Dictionary, envy is resentful dislike of another who has something desirable. America, which has several times succeeded at conquering the hearts of the world, today has succeeded at being the non-loved, if not the hated, of the world. Since World War II, the world has completely changed, but for one thing, the mummified politics of our two-party system. The ship America is sinking under their feet, and ours by the same token. But our politicians are still discussing, very busy at discussing, what is the age of the captain. In order to take them from panicking during those bipartisan discussions, the passengers are provided with a food for cat, which is entitled The State of the Nation. And nothing moves after the State of the Nation speech. The citizens are going back to sleep, drugged by the scientifically established inanity of their televisions, from reality shows to the murder at the corner of the street, which will be good for several days of interviews, from the American Idols to the marriage of gay people. We can argue that so far we can enjoy the freedom of speech and opinion, believing, by the way, that we are the only country in the world we can have that privilege. We can watch on the screen what we can do with $1 million. We can also build houses of size close to obscenity. We can eat hamburgers, the biggest hamburgers in the world, by billions, thanks to the deforestation of the planet to provide grazing for all that beef. But best of all, we can argue that we can drive the biggest automobile in the world. This allows us to show the finger to the Kyoto Protocol and also to Mr. Al Gore with his movie about the warming of the planet. Thus also give us the absolute right to be the #1 polluter in the world, forgetting that those automobiles are certainly the deepest untold reason for wars under whichever pretext, which in reality are wars for oil. Thus, the bigger the car you drive, the more guilty you are to push us into war to ensure your needs of gas and also the profit of the oil companies. But we sleep on that. America became the Sleeping Beauty. Someday, like in the story of the Sleeping Beauty, a charming prince will come to wake her up with a kiss. She will open her eyes. The prince will have a face with elongated, lidded eyes and will wear a uniform decorated with a beautiful red star. Of course. The powerful American economy has been the locomotive of the economy of the world. Unfortunately, it was based on two wrong but successful ideas. The first one is that free enterprise is freedom. The second one is that a growing economy is a sane economy. I have already said that the first wrong idea is that freedom of enterprise is in reality the freedom of the big to swallow the small. The second wrong idea is that economy, according to economists, is the science which studies how humanity tries to maximize human happiness. For economists, human happiness is measured by the volume of goods and services that human beings can enjoy. But this leads also humanity to the way of a total disaster because it creates an unsolvable contradiction between the unreality of unlimited growth and the reality of the limited resources of the planet. Despite economic theories, the so far uncontrollable warming of the planet will be enough all by itself to put an end to the over-expanding economy. The problem is that governments are not interested into climatic crisis. It would go against the national interest of the 10% that own America. Corporations and government have deeply demonstrated that the human factor has no value when confronted with the numbers appearing in the financial markets. The philosopher and historian Thomas Carlyle was right when he dubbed economics the dismal science. The truth is very simple. Humanity uses renewable resources faster than they can be replaced. Today, 1 person out of 5 does not have access to safe drinking water. 1/5 of the rainforest has been destroyed between 1960 and 1990. They are the non-renewable resources. Here we don't live on the interest, but we are eating the capital. Let's take, for example, the hottest of them, oil. We know perfectly well that oil is the non-renewable product of a slow evolution of the earth. So the quiz question becomes to know what will be the answer. Will there be no more oil, especially after the Chinese will have millions of automobiles on the road, and the rest of the world more millions of automobiles on the road, to know if there will be no more oil, or if those automobiles will put so much CO2 in the atmosphere that life on the ground will become impossible. When the aliens will come to visit the planet Earth and will find all of us dead in the middle of our cars, they will say, "Strange, look, they are dead in the middle of abundance. How come?" And they will send divers to explore our craniums, and they will come back saying that they are empty. And they will say, "Strange, they died of emptiness in the middle of abundance." Think globally and act locally. It is true. But I cannot, in the short length of this show, give you all the small gestures, all the tricks that you can use every day to reduce our consumptions of resources. Like, for example, put a brick into the toilet bowl to reduce the use of water. Plus, I don't know all those tricks. But I can give some of the solutions that we could use globally and locally to try to stop the death of our small planet. Planet presents itself as a third party in America, because it is born in America and its first political actions are in America. However, its philosophy can be applied to any country in the world, which would create relation, links, and eventually coordinated action among those nations. At that point, I would like to change the title of the show for An Inconvenient Truth by Mr. Al Gore. Doesn't need any comment or additions. It said it all. But it seems seemingly beating the air, for no government will really take the measure necessary to stop or to reduce the warming of the planet. Let us go into some details. The annual gas emission for the year 2000, and you can suppose that it did not diminish since, was that the CO2 in the atmosphere was produced 21% by power plants. So Planet will fully support the study and creation of replacements for the production of energy at international, national, and local levels. The annual greenhouse gas was also produced by 15% by transportation. It is a well-established fact that automobiles are great polluters. But it is also a fact that it is a sensitive item in the hearts of many Americans. And it certainly would be the best example that America could give to the rest of the world if Americans were curbing their appetite for cars. In order to transform a sensible wish into a real gesture, Planet asked for the classification of cars in 4 categories with a large sticker on their trunk. Cars will pay sales taxes and gas according to their sticker. White, electric or hybrid. Green, small consumption. Yellow, medium size. Red, large and SUVs. Planet supports the re-establishment of a large railroad network. Local. Railroads have been systematically destroyed to make place to the automobile industry. It was possible, for example, to go to Lambertville to New York by train. We will do in such a way that we will re-establish the communication so much that you will not desire to go to New York by car. National. Passenger. Construction of a network of what I will call TGS, Train Great Speed, linking the large cities town to town in order to minimize the use of planes, great polluters on high altitude. Freight. Construction of a commercial railroad network for the rapid transportation of trucks and freight on long distances. With regard to the environment, Planet will propose drastic measures to protect the environment with the help given to all associations, movements and NGOs fighting for its protection. With regard to the media, the large media considered as part of the industrial establishment belong to those who operate them, with support by government capital, without socialist ownership by the government. They ban commercial advertising. In regard to housing, Planet proposed the end of oversized houses. New houses will have to respect a code of habitat fixing the number of cubic feet, thus minimizing the use of raw material, especially wood. In regards to non-government organizations, it is very well known and documented that usually only a small portion of official financial aid to governments of poor populations reaches the poor themselves. Planet proposes to support non-government organizations and organizations like the Peace Corps without interference by the government, so that they can replace the government for humanitarian help in the country and in the world. In regard to the global use of resources, Planet proposes that America should take the lead to create an international accord and control over the use of the planet resources. Some people will scream that the Planet program, presented as social capitalism, goes against individual freedom, because they believe that it is socialism. If they say that it is socialism, it is because they don't know what socialism is. In any case, they should realize that the 300 millions that we are facing 8 or 9 billion people will not be able to keep forever consuming 30% of the resources of the planet, money or no money. The problem is that the population of the United States doesn't grow at the pace of the population of the world. So if we do not change our policies, one out of two things will happen. We will have in the future more and more wars, more and more severe to control our resources, or we will be slowly strangled in a war of attrition. Now we go back to the Rapa Nui syndrome. We have the technology to make the world as it is today sustainable, but two components are missing. Number one, the will of governments to address the real problem. Number two, all efforts that we can make are useless if we do not deal with a last problem. Rapa Nui died of its success and of its overpopulation. The overgrowth of the population may erase all efforts made to establish a balance between resources and the population. The overgrowth of the populations happens in underdeveloped countries, while the developed countries eventually see a negative growth in their population. You know the saying, love is the coffee of the poor. So the logical answer should be to give some coffee to the poor. But there is also that saying which says that empty stomachs have no ears. So it would be the first thing to do to fill up those stomachs before trying to explain to them, well, it is bad for them to have too many children and for the planet by the same token, or how to make love without having babies. Not only providing coffee and food for the poor will have a positive result in the future of the planet, but it would also ensure us that God will bless America. Christ himself told us why we are blessed. Then the king will say to those on his right, us, of course, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Everybody knows that it is the favorite meditation of our government in his morning prayer. When America will have a government of the people, by the people, it will be again able to become a great country and find its way to the hearts of the people of the world by showing the example of what has to be done to preserve peace and also save the planet and its inhabitants. But what will be the price to pay for that? But that will be my next and final story.